Hello everyone and welcome back to Haunted Yorkshire. I live in Yorkshire, so kind of like stories when they're more close to home. But this tale is from Brig House. We'll just get into it, shall we? Although several counties in England lay claim to possessing the final resting place of legendary outlaw Robin Hood, West Yorkshire is thought to be one of the most likely locations, as several of the places popularly associated with the folk hero exist near the town of Brig House. The grave of Robin Hood stands clearly marked for all to see, albeit on private property, on the Armitage family estate in Kirklees. Although some of the ghostly phenomena forms part of the ancient folklore of the area, may be explained as mere superstition, actual experiences have continued into recent years. Judith Broadbent, a journalist from Dewsbury Reporter, was granted access to the graveside, accompanied by a photographer from the newspaper, of course. While Miss Broadbent was walking around the grave, she heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching her, although there was no one to account for them, and she was suddenly pulled violently to the ground. She cried out, "Get away!" at which the force ceased and she was able to scramble to her feet. In 1963, without permission from the owner, two men took a stroll up to the grave. They saw a white-robed figure appear from nowhere and it moved silently before them. In 1972, one of the two, Roger Williams, returned for another sly visit with a friend and saw the same figure, which this time stopped just a few yards away from the men. They were able to describe it as a woman wearing a long white dress with a square neck and long sleeves. This was later discovered to be the type of garment worn by the Cistercian nuns who were formerly resident at the nearby abbey. Following this sighting, the two men heard strange bangings and knockings emanating from, well, nowhere. And it was these sounds, rather than the appearance of the apparition, that made Roger Williams vow that not even wild horses would drag me up there again. We head to Dewsbury now, Heath Farm. Heath Farm on busy Dewsbury to Wakefield Road is thought to date back to the 17th century and is constructed over a network of mining tunnels. Although there are vague tales of previous owners having experienced some paranormal activity here, a vast number of happenings were reported by Jackie and Graham Johnson. And they moved into the property in 1991. Although not a medium, Jackie believes herself to have natural psychic abilities, and she sensed the presence of several spirits on the farm. An elderly woman is sometimes seen standing in the farmyard, feeding chickens from her apron, but she appears not to be the most welcoming of hostesses, for Jackie thinks she is responsible for turning off the oven just before guests are due to arrive for dinner. A corner of the farm workshop is a favoured sitting place for an old man who's been blamed for switching off lights and machinery at exactly 3:30 p.m. every day. On one occasion, workers from a double glazing company who were busy in the workshop were spooked by the man who appeared from nowhere and sat watching them work, particularly when he disappeared and approached one of the fitters to realise there wasn't anybody there. Among the other phenomena reported here are men with shotguns, and they stalk the perimeter of the property. A group of children thought to be plague victims also belong there. A woman who cries for a child in the kitchen. A poltergeist activity in the office, with objects such as keys, pens and money disappearing and reappearing at regular intervals. A ghostly voice which calls people's names for no apparent reason, and a phantom echo voicing such phrases as "call the dog" or "call the horse," which are heard rebounding across the farmyard. A doppelganger is also at work here. The couple's dog, Sassy, was clearly seen to be bounding across the fields away from the farm, even though she was sitting quite happily next to the door of the farmhouse a second later. Although the ghost has startled the couple and some of their employees and visitors, they're not thought to be evil, and Jackie and Graham feel they would miss them if they ever vacated the premises to haunt anyone else. East Ardsley. In September 1993, East Ardsley Conservative Club became the unlikely setting for a ghost story as a phantom figure was clearly captured on their CCTV camera. Bill Hodgson, the club's treasurer, was alone in the building one afternoon, waiting for a friend who had arranged to meet him there, when he glanced at the camera's screen. Standing by the main doorway of the club was a man whom he did not recognise. However, Mr. Hodgson assumed it was his friend and went to greet him, but there was nobody there. Bemused, he returned to the screen and found that the mystery man was still standing in the doorway. A few days later, at the same time of afternoon, the image was seen yet again, and on investigation, the man was not actually there. And all the images captured on the CCTV, many people have examined the footage. They have been able to come up with any explanation to account for the phenomena. Several club members recall feeling a spooky sensation in the club, which made them feel uneasy, as if someone was on the premises with them when they thought themselves to be only people in the building. According to Bill Hodgson, some club members think it is a ghost, whereas others think it's a load of hogwash. But I'd like to see those who don't believe come in here at midnight on their own and watch the video. That's true. That would scare them, wouldn't it? And the next is Flockton. Ghosts and hauntings are among the inexplicable phenomena that are alleged to be in abundance at locations crisscrossed by ley lines, ancient channels of energy situated in the ground. It is believed by many people that the village of Flockton, southwest of Wakefield, is one such location. Several people in Flockton have tales to tell, including a local policeman who had not experience on his beat during the middle of the night. He has seen strangers passing by in darkness and wondering who they were. Or were they not local, of course? He didn't think they were. He turned round to make sure they were up to no good, only to find they had simply vanished. The landlord and landlady of the George and Dragon have run the friendly local since the mid-1970s. Immediately after moving in, they did some renovation work on the building, and they think that something may have been disturbed in the process. One particular incident, which remains etched firmly in their memories, occurred just before winter, about 12 months after they had taken over the premises. The couple had put the fire on at lunchtime in the lounge upstairs to get it warm in time for their afternoon break, and had retired there at about 3:30 p.m. after the bar closed. They sat down with their coffee and sandwiches to put their feet up for a while and watch TV. The lounge door opened on its own and shortly after closed again, and despite the fire having been on for some time, the room became icy cold. The landlord leapt up and searched the building for a possible intruder, but there was no one there but themselves. The couple sat there discussing what they had experienced for quite a while, wondering what it was that seemed to have joined them. Then the lounge door opened and closed again, and the icy feeling just vanished. Again the landlord checked for intruders, and again there was no sign of anyone at all. And it's actually true, because I've been to the George and Dragon myself. That one, there's quite a few, but yeah, it's meant to be haunted. Whatever it was, explained the landlord later, had obviously joined us in the room, then left soon after. We never did find an explanation for it. On another occasion, his wife screamed out loud one night. She had seen a man in 18th century clothing standing on the landing upstairs. But when the landlord went to look, there was no one to be seen. Another evening, at the end of the evening session, one of the regulars in the pub said that he could see a man standing in the top room, which leads just off the bar. The landlord was sceptical, saying there couldn't possibly be anyone there, as there was no one other than the small group in the pub and all the doors were bolted. They laughed it off as they sat in the bar, but a few minutes later, the man said he could see the figure again. This time, the landlord went to investigate, but could see nothing. His friend described a figure that was dressed in 18th century clothing, definitely a man. A different regular was sitting with the landlord on another occasion after the bar had closed and told him that he'd just seen two people walk past the doorway of the pub. The landlord said there was no one in the car park and dismissed the sighting with a laugh. A few minutes passed and his friend said, "There they are again. Two people just walked past the door." The landlord went to investigate, but returned saying there was no one in sight. The regular, who was a well-built businessman, unafraid of most things, insisted the landlord accompany him to his car as he left. There you go. Those are just a few tales, and these are located in West Yorkshire, or Yorkshire, actually. And like I say, it is pronounced Yorkshire, but some people do just say Yorkshire, but it's Yorkshire. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.